All right, so welcome to Brandon's Black History Week 5. Um, it's been fun for myself. It's been fun to dive in and learn more about our history, to be able to teach it and put together a presentation for you. A lot of this stuff I've known about, heard about, so to be able to dive into it has been pretty cool. Um, we will. I already have a topic for next week, so we'll talk a little bit about that after this one. Um, but so a couple weeks ago we had talked about Greenwood, Oklahoma, and how that town was destroyed. But that town was destroyed because of something different, right? Like that town was destroyed because of racism and people being jealous. This week we're going to talk about Seneca Village, and it was destroyed for a different reason. Kind of the same thing with the racism, but there were no allegations of a crime. There were no people going after people there. It was just we're rich, we are wealthy, and we deserve what people across the ocean have, such as Central Park. So the reason why Central Park was built was because the wealthy in Manhattan, downtown Manhattan, when they would travel to France and those other countries, they'd have those big parks, those big open spaces. And so the wealthy wanted to do that in New York. And before there was Central Park, all of that was countryside. So all of that wasn't, a lot of people weren't living there. It was all countryside. It's pretty much like living in Peoria and then coming out to Elmwood. If Peoria wealthy people wanted to come and take over Elmwood and build a huge park, that's kind of like what we're talking about. They're going to take your house. You're going to be evicted. If your house is worth $100,000, well, they're going to give you $10,000, and you have to take it. You go fight it in court. Well, the wealthy people know the judges, and they win, right? So that's something that we're going to talk about tonight with Seneca Village and how it became Central Park. All right, Seneca Village, a town of mostly African Americans, freed slaves, but these people, there were also people that had their own businesses. There were people that had their own money, and then it lasted for about 30 years before they came in and took it and bulldozed it and turned it into what we know today as Central Park. The formation started in 1825. Took about 5 years to start getting, houses and buildings built. But there was a John and Elizabeth Whitehead. They owned all of this property, and then they wanted to start selling property, so they broke it off into 200 lots. What we see today, people own property, farmland, and you just mark it off, and then you start selling those lots. That's what they did, and made quite a bit of money. Andrew Williams, a shoe shiner, he came in and bought 3 lots for $125, right? We all wish we could buy a lot for $125 now. Mr. Davis, the store clerk, he came in and bought 12 lots for $578. One of the African American churches came in and bought up 6 lots. And then they had 10 homes within 5 years built in that village. So they were moving out of Manhattan. They didn't want to be in Manhattan. Reasons why? Back in the 1800s, discrimination, right? It was a big thing in New York. The wealthy, the white population did not want to be around Black people or Germans or Irish, because they were superior. They felt like they were better than the other people. Seneca Village was remote. It's away from downtown Manhattan. They didn't have to deal with the stuff that they had to deal with in Manhattan. They were healthier out there in that village because it was less crowded, right? Like you're not living on top of each other. You have your own space. You have your own yard. You have a nice sized house. You can move around. It wasn't shoulder to shoulder. It wasn't all these people on the road. So you had a lot more space, a lot more. It's kind of like where we live at right now, right? We have big yards. We're not right on top of each other. And we can relax. You can get away from everybody after work. You can relax. And that's something that a lot of people would love to have today. So in the 1850s, they were stable. They were prosperous. They were living as good as the people in Manhattan. 3 churches, 2 burial grounds, 2 schools. They had 350 people living there. They had their own stuff, right? You didn't have to worry about going to Manhattan to buy stuff. You didn't have to worry about using their services because you had your shoe shiners, you had your barbers, you had all of that stuff in your little village. So you didn't have to worry about the outside world. You didn't have to worry about, using the other people to get what you need. Your own little community. You got your grocery store. You got what you need here. You don't have to go 20 miles away just to get something. In the 1800s, that was big. That was really big. They had the Hudson River. They did their own fishing. Tanner Springs, that is in Central Park today. They use that for their water source. They had their own gardens. They had their own livestock. They didn't have to. You didn't have to go to the city to go to the butcher. You didn't have to go to the city to get your vegetables. But when you see that and you don't have that and you're wealthy, you don't want anybody else to have that, So, but within that, you had Irish people move in, you had Germans move in. And I'm not saying this for a fact, but I believe in what I've seen and what I've read that Seneca Village was the first integrated town in America. They weren't fighting, they weren't lynching, they weren't doing any of that stuff. They were living together, peacefully together, and taking care of each other. Because then it was, hey, they consider us poor, so we have to stay together so we can help take care of our own stuff and not worry about the people down there, right? So when you have your own things, people see that you don't need them, but yet they talk bad about them in the newspaper. They talk bad about them to each other. There are articles that I've read that they called Seneca Village the N word and town, right? Like they called them squatters, they called them poor. They talked about all these different things that they weren't when you're building your own schools, you're building your own churches. If you're poor, I don't think you have your own schools. You don't have two schools. You don't have churches. And we'll see some of that here in this video about some of the stuff that they found, because now, since they found out about Seneca Village in the 90s, they've actually started digging and finding different things from that village. And it is, from what they were called, you can tell that they were wealthy and that they had money and that they could take care of themselves. But hey, we want an open park because we're too crowded. We need open spaces. We need somewhere people can walk. We need to get away from diseases. We need to open up this place. And in doing that, we'll just get rid of these towns, these villages or village in this area, and pay them, $1,000 maybe, after everything that they built, everything that they earned. We're just going to give them pennies on the dollar for what they've made for themselves.
This is Central Park. It's an iconic part of New York City, a piece of nature tucked inside Manhattan. If you've lived in New York or even visited, you've probably been here.
But there's a part of this land story that visitors will never see.
It's the story of what was here before the park and the community that was destroyed to make way for it. In the 1820s, New York City looked like this. Most people lived in this area, Lower Manhattan. Pretty much everything above it was yet to be settled. In this map, you can see how different the geography was. These little lines illustrate what used to be hills in Manhattan. This was the countryside. Downtown was the opposite. Lower Manhattan was dense and crowded. A few small neighborhoods were home to many of the city's poor whites and immigrants, and also to much of its black population. This document shows the number of slaves in New York State. You can see how it went down gradually, from 20,000 in 1800 to 10,000 in 1820, and finally to just 75 in 1830. That's because in New York, slavery wasn't abolished all at once. Instead, it was ended over about 30 years. And as more free black people joined the workforce, racial tensions rose.
The people who were enslaved were now in competition with people coming over for jobs.
That tension led to violence, and Lower Manhattan became increasingly dangerous for free black people. Then, in 1825, plots of land started to go up for sale here, uptown. It was a way out. A black man named Andrew Williams decided to buy 3 lots.
Word gets out, black people seeing other black people and saying, oh, there's a little bit of a community developing here. Maybe we can just fold into this community. So they start to move in.
After Williams, more lots filled up with black families and churches.
And it was here, between 82nd and 89th Street, that the community of Seneca Village was born.
Moving up to Seneca Village offered black families an affordable, safe place. It also gave them the chance to vote. Black men could only vote in New York if they owned property. Over the course of the next 3 decades, the community grew to nearly 300 residents. Records from the census show that they were laborers, domestic workers, waiters, and shoemakers. And they built dozens of homes, 3 churches, and a school for black students. Later, when Irish and German immigrants started moving into Seneca Village, it became unique for another reason.
It was an integrated community. It seems that people of all ethnicities were likely getting along based on the church records that were here.
Among the documents are evidence that some white and black families attended baptisms together, were buried next to each other in the same cemetery, and intermarried.
The people who lived in this area were individuals who were trying to find a new way of life.
Over the next 3 decades, the population of New York City nearly quadrupled. Lower Manhattan could no longer hold everyone. The city's white elite were worried that the entire island would be consumed by development. They said it called for the necessity of a city park to give lungs to the city.
This came out of the elite being able to start to travel to Europe, and they see the Champs-Élysées and they see Kensington Park, and they think that the city deserves to have a park of that stature.
On July 21st, 1853, New York set aside 750 acres of land to create America's first major landscaped public park, the Central Park. But the proposed area for the park included Seneca Village, along with thousands of other lots of land, home to about 1,600 people. In order to facilitate the park's development, the city's newspapers started to downplay who really lived there.
They really described these people as living in shanties and shacks. People of debased cultures were living off the land.
But that wasn't true. In 2011, Cynthia and a team of archaeologists excavated in the former Seneca Village site. They came away with 250 bags of objects to analyze, which now live here in New York City's archaeological repository. These objects suggest that Seneca Village was wealthier than many assumed.
When we compare the objects from the homes of the people in Seneca Village with artifacts from Greenwich Village, an elite upper middle class neighborhood, in some cases they were using the same kind of ironstone plate in what was called the Gothic pattern.
Quite a few pieces of porcelain in Seneca Village, and porcelain was an expensive ware.
They also found other objects like a comb, a smoking pipe, roasting pan, and part of a toothbrush that probably didn't belong to poor people.
Toothbrushes were not common among the working class as well as the middle class until around 1920.
And the artifacts themselves were only one part of their analysis.
For example, from the census records from 1855, we know that there was a very high level of education.
Getting a high school education was clearly an important factor in the community, and that's very much a part of middle class identity.
The findings indicate that Seneca Village wasn't a shanty town. It was a working and middle class community, a growing neighborhood of Black property owners, and an experiment in integration. But to the white New York elite of 1856, it wasn't worth saving. A July 1856 article in the New York Times referred to it with a slur. The Ebon inhabitants, after whom the village is called, have been notified to remove by the 1st of August. Many residents fought to keep their land by filing objections to their forced removal. But Seneca Village, along with the other settlements on the land for Central Park, was seized and destroyed. In their place, the city made pathways, built bridges and arches, and planted thousands of trees. Central Park was done, and Seneca Village was gone forever.
We can't imagine New York City without Central Park, but I'm finally grateful that the recognition of the pre-park history has emerged.
Today, New York is starting to reckon with this part of its history. An exhibition with information about Seneca Village is temporarily up in the park. But the real legacy of Seneca Village is a story that's repeated itself again and again in cities everywhere.
Land, property ownership, that's how you get wealth, and you pass wealth on from generation to generation. But you're getting a bulldozer that comes through because a new highway has to come through, or a new hospital or development site has to come in. Seneca Village was no different. It's time that we own it, and we come to recognize that there are these great stories that live beneath the surface of the park. It's not just African American history, it's just American history.
All right. So Seneca Village. There's not a lot on Seneca Village, right? Like it was only there for 30 years, about 32 years. They went in 1857 is when they took over the land and started bulldozing it and started making Central Park. But what they don't tell you in this is when the people left, they don't know where they went. They didn't go build another town, another village anywhere else because there was really nowhere for them to go. So some of them moved away. Some of them tried to stay, but of course, you try to stay and you get what you had before you had Seneca Village. You have to deal with discrimination. We are better than you because we have more money than you, is what Manhattan had, right? Like it was one of those, well, we're rich, and you were a slave, and we really don't want to be around you. So when people talk about the South, we also have to talk about the North, right? The North wasn't any better for blacks when they came here and when they were freed. It was just the Union won the war, so everybody considers the North like, hey, the North accepted everybody, but what they don't talk about is the North still has slaves after the Civil War. They just weren't, that their economy just didn't need them like the South did. So there are many other towns and cities and villages that have been destroyed. Seneca Village is the second one that I talked about. Greenwood was the first one that I talked about. But why, why do people feel like that would have been okay back then? And then when you turn it to today, that there are still people that feel that same way, that we're better than you, that this is our town, or we deserve better than you, and why should you have something better than us? Why should you be able to live on the countryside and have this fresh water and have your fishing and have all this stuff, but yet we're living on top of each other and we're getting sick faster and we're dying faster because we're sick? And so, you know what? If European cities have parks and all these open spaces, well, we need it too. And we will forget about you. We will get rid of your stuff to make us happy, right? So if we look at it as this, it's all about me. I don't care about you, wherever you go, whatever. But for me, this is what's best for me. And for me, it's my family having this nice park and these bridges and these walkways to walk on and bike and all that stuff. But for you, you can just go, go wherever. You probably didn't have savings. You're you're living fine. You're living just as good as them, but are you able to go build another town somewhere? Are you all able to get up and move and go to another town and build up all these lots that you did before? It's kind of like Greenwood. After all that happened, all that stuff was burned down. They didn't have any money. You don't have insurance like you have today. If something happens, you're covered, as long as you read the little fine print, make sure that your policy covers it all. But you have people then, and you still have people now that feel like, well, we deserve what you have, and we deserve more than what you have. Right? So we will destroy no matter what. We will destroy your town to get what we want. We will take over what you have to get what we want. All of this stuff I always talk about it goes back to, why are Black people, African Americans, upset today? Why were they upset in the 90s? Why were they upset in the 60s? Right? Because people say that there's not racism, right? And they always end it at slavery, right? They always say, well, slavery was over 400 years ago. Get over it. But when you see these stories, right? Seneca Village destroyed. Greenwood destroyed. Other places that we're going to talk about next week, destroyed and never the same as what they were when they were in their heyday before things happen. So people say, well, get over it. Slavery is 400 years ago. Why do we have to keep a policy?
Just my connection, or I think something happened on Brandon's end. This happened in one of our first meetings, and he left the meeting and then had to come back in. So my guess is that's what's happening right now. I am sending him a message right now.
What are we talking about right now? Like, I just joined.
Brandon was talking about Seneca Village, which was a African-American settlement in what is now Central Park in New York City, and how basically Manhattan decided they wanted a park and annex the city, or annex the town, the village, bulldozed it, and the people that lived there really didn't have any recourse. Yeah, does that sound about right to everybody?
Yeah, it's pretty accurate.
Yeah.
I think it highlights one of the downfalls of eminent domain. It's kind of a slippery slope.
I've not heard back from Brandon yet. Yeah, okay. I kind of told everybody that. All right, so you're trying to get back here. All right. Thanks. All right, hopefully the boss can get back into his own meeting here in a second.
All right, I think I'm back in. All right. All right, there you are. Hello, everybody. All right, where did I leave off? What did you not hear, or what did you hear last?
I think the last thing I remember you talking about, Brandon, was you were tying it back into why are Black people so upset today? Why were they upset in the 90s? Why were they upset in the 60s? And it's this recurring thing over and over and over again that's been piling on. I assume I'm speaking for you now, but piling on and piling on and piling on, and
Yeah.
this constant weight that never gets lifted and just keeps. The shoulders must be very strong.
Right. Yeah. So I don't know if you guys heard the what if the shoe was on the other foot, right? What if the Africans went to Europe and brought slaves over from Europe, right? And all this stuff continued to happen. You know, you start off with slavery, and then after slavery, you get you start building your own towns, and then a Black person says, well, that guy, you know, touched me or looked at me the wrong way, and then you get lynchings, and homes are burned to the ground, and people are killed. How would you feel if it was just a continuous cycle for you, right? and you have leaders, right? And then your leaders are assassinated, right? Like people that speak up for you are killed. You know, black people controlled the country, all right? Like what if that was happening? You know, what if something happened, police officers kill somebody, and it happens now. White people are killed too, unarmed by police. But I don't understand why people don't get upset about that, right? Is it because you don't see it all the time or hear about it all the time? Or is it that since it's not the norm, when it happens, it's sad, it saddens you, it doesn't anger you, right? Like now when I see somebody on the street or I see pictures of, you know, back in the 20s and early 1900s and lynchings in the 60s and all that stuff, it upsets me. You know, I don't get sad anymore. I just get upset. You know, watching George Floyd on the street, right? Like I wasn't sad. I was angry, you know, and then to see some people who you grew up with, some people that you know, make certain comments, right? That hurts you. That makes you sad, because it's like you don't understand all of the years, all of this history that has happened, right? Like some people think this just happened and racism doesn't exist, right? Like this just happened. There was slavery, and then there was this, and that was it, right? Because they don't know the history, right? They don't know all of that bad history in the United States. You know, they don't want to know that history. You know, they only want to hear the good stuff, which usually the good stuff had bad stuff before it, right? So to see people make comments and then my question to them is, so what if it was your kid's coach, right? Well, what if it was your kid's coach, you know, who was on the ground and died? Was it just the cop was doing his job? Or would you actually stand up and say something? Would you be upset if it was me? Right? Like if it was me on the street, on the news, with my neck, with a knee in my neck, dying, how would you feel? If you say you would be upset, then I feel like you should be upset about what happened recently, and you should also be upset about what has happened over the years of our country, right? So if people did learn the history, you know, that's why I'm doing this. If people did learn it and people did actually listen to it and look into it, then people would actually start coming to terms with, man, maybe I was wrong and I need to start looking at this at a different way. You know, I need to start looking at it from a different view, not just, like I said earlier, it's about me and how I feel and what I want. It's not about them, right? It's not about you. It's not about anybody else. It's about me and how I feel, right? So people want to say there's no racism. Well, in 1825, before they built Seneca Village, there was discrimination, and I'm pretty sure there's racism with those jobs. You know, they didn't want to hire black people, and white people definitely didn't want to give up their jobs to black people. So then you start getting fights and deaths and all that stuff. So then they go move and build their own place, build their own place up with other people and live happily together But that's not enough, right? That's not enough. We need a park, right? Like we need to level this village and build something for ourselves, because we don't care about anybody else. We only care about how we feel, and we only care about what we want. So next week, one of the topics that Cody wanted to talk about was Red Summer 1919. It's actually, I think, 1917 to 1923. The Red Summer 1919 was like this massacre in Chicago and other cities. It all started in East St. Louis, or might have it. I know I saw East St. Louis, but then I also saw Florida, where the girl said that she was attacked by a black man, and then all these riots, race riots, start breaking out, and it is some brutal stuff that happened between 1917 and 1923 with the Red Summer. So I'll talk about that next week. There's a lot of stuff on there. There's books on it. And that's another piece of history that really needs to be told. And that's another piece of history, though, that we're just going to sweep under the rug, and we'll write some books about it, but we really won't put them out. And then if people tend to run into it on the internet, then whatever. But it's something else that should be taught in school, right? Like everything that I'm covering should be taught in school. You get 1 month out of the year, which I said this is the first week, so that breaks down to 1 year in your 12 years of school for Black history. That's not enough. That is not if you just went over the good things and not what I'm going over, if you just went over all of the positive things that Black people have done for this country, that 1 year and 12 years is not enough. But you only get the basics. Another reason why people are upset, right? Like, people are upset because the history isn't being taught. They're not talking about it. You get your basics. So yesterday, when I went and read the book to the little kiddos, I talked about Harriet Tubman, but I wanted to talk about two other people that you don't hear about in school, right? So, which was pretty awesome. The kids were great. So, are there any questions about Seneca Village? And then, are there any questions? And we'll try to stay on topic of cities and Seneca Village and that kind of stuff. And then there are some other things that we might touch on too.
Brandon, you were talking about Seneca Village, and I just quick did a search for Black communities that have been displaced. And what I thought about right away was the expressway, the Eisenhower up in Chicago when all the interstates went in and everything, and came up with this huge article on just about the Eisenhower Expressway and what it meant and what it turned that area into. And it's a fascinating website where you can do one of those sliders where you can see the area before and the area after and what it turned into. Right. But it basically, it comes down to what you're talking about, the haves and the have-nots. A large majority or a large percentage of those people were Black, but there were also Mexican Americans, Italian Americans, Greek Americans, people that were probably certainly lower socioeconomic and identifiable. I see the difference being that the Italian Americans, the Greek Americans, once the accent went away, they were able to assimilate a little bit better. Yes, not identifiable. And in this thing, it talks about that the expressways killed two birds with one stone. They modernized the city for cars because it had been a railway. And it also was a way to clear out blighted neighborhoods. but the pictures show that they aren't blighted neighborhoods. They just picked the neighborhoods that were easiest to make go away. And they didn't go through Evanston. They didn't go through those kinds of places. They went through the near west side, the south side. And I thought that was really interesting how it's a lower socioeconomic issue, and Black Americans tend to fit in that already disproportionately. And so they tend to be affected more when something like this happens.
Yeah.
Coach Hollis, can you provide a link to that?
I do have a question for you though, since unless somebody else wants to jump in. You talked about when should we be upset? Should we be upset when it's our coach, who is the guy on the ground with his neck and it was a knee in his neck and all that stuff? And it got me thinking, how many times, or what's your experience with people saying to you, well, you're just Brandon. You're not a Black guy. You're not like the other Black guys. I know we've had this discussion before, but I want you to get kind of real with, how often does that happen? Because to me, you're just Brandon. But I also told you the other day that I realized that what I need to see is every time I see a Black man, I need to see him as you. First, that's the way I need to view the world, is find the person that I love, and that's the where I should start from. Right. So anyway, so there's my question, I guess.
Yeah. So Cody had one for you. Can you send him the link for that?
There right now
for that, and then yeah, I mean, that question, right? Like, so Brittany's sitting over here and she's like, all the time, right? Like all the time. It's one of those where I've gotten to the point where when people start saying that, I just kind of tune them out. And once they start with well, you're not like everybody else. You're Brandon, right? And I'm like, okay, here we go. Right? Like, yes, I am Brandon. Yes, I am a Black man. Yes, I am unique, but I'm still Black. I'm still African American, which I prefer Black. I am a Black American who was born in Peoria, Illinois, who is not from Africa, right? Like, I am a unique person just like everybody else in the world. Okay, everybody is unique. But when people say, well, I don't see you as Black, right? Like, that is kind of a dig to me. It's like, no, I am Black, and I'm proud to be Black. The other part of that is, well, I don't see color, right? Like, I get that a lot. I don't see color. I was actually having a discussion yesterday. I had 2 discussions about this in the last week, actually 3 in the last 4 days, about people saying that they don't see color. My answer to them would be the same thing. If you don't see color, then you're bunching us all together into one, right? You're lumping everybody into one system, into humans. Okay. Well, I am Black. You should see me as a Black man. Yes. Right. I am a unique person on this earth. We're not all the same. Right. I have different talents than somebody else. They have different talents than me. I have a name. My name is Brandon. That makes me unique from other people. I have my skin color, which is Black, and I'm proud to be Black. So when I say people are unique, you should see people for what they are and who they are on the inside. Yes, but you should still see them as, hey, Coach Hollis is a white man, tall, who is unique, who can coach, and other people can't do that. He can teach science and other people can't do that, right? I am Brandon. I'm black. Who knew that I could teach a class? I didn't, but I play the drums. I play sports. I'm a coach, right? I can talk to anybody. I can fit in with any crowd. I don't fit in with any crowd because I'm a certain color. I just fit in with every crowd because I can. It's something unique about me that I can fit in with other people. My groups of friends range from many different people and other things, right? Music and shoes and all this other stuff. Hats, love hats. And I mean, I friends with doctors and lawyers and everybody else. And then I'm friends with people that wash cars, right? I'm friends with people that sell shoes. I'm friends with people that do other things, right? Deliver food. But the whole, hey, you're just Brandon. You're not a black man. That's kind of like, well, everybody else is bad, right? Like this is how I take it. Everybody else is bad, right? All those other black people are bad. You're the good one, right? Like, and then I get this one. You talk white. What does that mean, right? Because I'm educated, because I can speak correctly. Like it's kind of like it's kind of like when they say like, hey, we trained you to talk like that, right? Like you talk a certain way. I've always talked like this. I'd never talked different when I lived in Peoria. I came out here talking this way. When I came to Elmwood, I wasn't trained a certain way to speak like this. And some of that stuff kind of makes you feel like an animal, really, right? Like, oh, you're a good boy. You're not like those other ones, and that's how I feel sometimes. And I just tune it out. They once they start with it, it's like, yeah, okay, see you later. It's just one of those.
Cassie LaFollette and I were talking about something kind of along those lines the other day. We were in the car together, and she basically said, like, saying, oh, you don't act black, or oh, you aren't really all that black, you act like you're white. It's like saying, like, basically there's something wrong with being black or something like that. And I was like, I really thought about that. I'm like, oh, she's right. Like, like that. It's true. It's like, oh, you don't act black. Well, what's wrong with acting black? Like,
right.
What's wrong with being black?
Like,
there's nothing wrong with it.
Like, what is my question would be, what is acting black? Right? Like, that's what I would hit them back with. And then make them come up with an answer. And then more than likely that answer is going to be pretty racist. Right?
Right.
It's going to be pretty racist, pretty prejudiced. It's going to be like these bullet points of being a black person or being a black man, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, you don't have dreads, or you don't dress with your pants sack, or something stupid like that is going to be the answer. So I do love to hit them with that question, like, well, what do you mean by that?
Right.
Yeah. The one of my favorites was when I moved out here was can I touch your hair?
No.
That
not touching the hair.
Like, no, you're not touching my hair, man. Like, what do I look like? I know I'm different, but I ain't that different, man. I'm a human. I'm not a pet, So yeah, it's that kind of stuff, man. There's a lot of that stuff. A lot of that. That was a good question, Coach.
So it just got me thinking about the Fresh Prince and how you have Carlton, right? Who supposedly is the white black guy. But then you look at his dad and his mom, and they're just people living a life. They weren't they weren't caricatures. And Carlton just happened to be a dude that was living this. If he was white, we would have called him preppy, right? And that's all you would have called him. And I started thinking, like, how do we have, you're not acting white enough? But within that, no, it's like weird, like, because within white enough, you have all these different variations. Are you a redneck? Are you a preppy? Are you like, you're allowed to be these different things when you're white. But if you're black, you have to be hip hop, South Side, some sort of whatever, right? You have to be that thing that is that is the narrative that goes on and on, that perpetuates this bad image, this reason why. This is crazy.
Yeah, it's one of those. It's kind of like when we talk about white culture, right? Like how come it's wrong for a white person to say, you know, white power or white pride or something like that, and then black people say black power, you know, black pride, whatever. But in the white culture, you have Irish culture, you have German culture, you have French, you know, you have British, you have all of these different cultures within the white community, whereas in black community you have African culture, right? You have one culture, and that's black, right? So, but then you get the, well, you're not black enough, or you don't act black. It's like, wait, like you said, you guys get preppy, you get redneck, you get all these other definitions of what being white is, and then black people get, like, a black man gets, well, you're not black enough because you don't sag your pants, you don't talk like everybody else, you might not listen to rap music, you know, it's just one thing after another that everybody has to be the same, to where you're not black enough, or you act white, you know, you speak white, you talk white. It's like, no, I don't. I speak how I speak, you know. If I wanted to talk that way, I could, you know, but I don't. That doesn't define me as a. Just muted me. So, all right, I'm back in. So I think I got a ghost in the house that's telling me to shut up. But no, it's, yeah, I mean, I was talking to people about that, right? Different cultures. You know, it's like black people get February, right? White people get, I don't know, Oktoberfest and whatever other the St. Patrick's Day, right? You get all these other festivals and all these other things, and then, you know, black people get February, the shortest month of the year. In the winter, it's not like we go out and barbecue in February, you know. So, but yeah, it's just one of those things that I've dealt with a lot, especially moving out here. And, you know, I also got it when I was in Peoria too, you know, from my buddies, like, hey man, you don't talk black. You ain't black enough. You know, it's like, I'm black. You know, when I leave my house, other people see me as a black man, and that's it. Right? Like, that's it. They don't know that I'm a coach. They don't know that I live in Elmwood. They don't know that I have a wife and a kid. They don't know that I work at the hospital. They don't know any of that. They see me in the mall. They see me in the store. They see me on the road. They just see that's another black man in America, right? That's all they see. Even if I speak this way, they still just see a black man, right? No matter how I dress, they just see a black man, right? Like other people don't see the uniqueness in people either. They just see color. There are people that just see color and then just, hey, that's a black man. I'm gonna cross the street because he might do something to me. You know, oh, there's a black man in my store. I better go follow him. You know, but no, if more people would say, hey, I know Brandon. He's a good example, right? He's shown me that all black people shouldn't be lumped into one category, and that they are different and they are unique. That, hey, I should look at that next person as him and treat him like him before I start into the whole, well, is he going to do something to me? Always keep your defenses up with anybody, with anyone in the world. Keep your defenses up. I do. But I also want to go get to know people. If I didn't get to know people, I wouldn't be doing this. You know, if you always got to stay safe. Yes. But you can get to a point where your prejudices turn into racism, right? And then you don't get to know anybody from another race. You just end up putting yourself in a box, and then you stay inside that box, and then there's nobody different. That's when you do get everybody clumped together and the same, because all you see is one race, one person, you know. So, yeah.
Coach,
Go ahead. I was going to say, to your point, Brandon, I don't think that anybody likes to be judged by just one aspect of their life or their character. And so it's harder. Like, for instance, I just recently listened to the last week's taping that you did, or recording that you did. And I think, what was her name? Jay Cherie?
Yeah.
Was talking about, she was saying how she lived in Chicago, which struck home for me because I'm living in the Chicago area right now. And someone said to her, oh, I'm sorry, just joking. And she was like, you know what? I take exception to that, because you wouldn't like it if somebody just that made assumptions about you based on the fact that you're from a small town or whatever the case.
Right.
And so for Black people, I think, or white people in general, you notice the thing about them right away, the color of their skin.
Right.
And it's not fair to make assumptions of people just based on one thing you know about them. And I think it probably makes it harder for you, because the thing that people see the most, obviously, is the way you look.
Right.
Or anyone. So I guess I don't really have a point, except for it's not just fair to judge someone about just one thing about them. Right.
I mean, it would be like, hey, I meet somebody that's from, I don't know, I would use it because it's local, Pekin, right? Everybody knows the history of Pekin, right? So that's like me saying, okay, well, I just met this person from Pekin, and I'm not going by the color of their skin or anything. I'm just going by where they live. And I say, well, you're automatically racist, right? Because of their history, right? Because of Pekin's history, I just automatically put them in a box as racist. What happens to Black people? There goes a Black man walking down the street. He's a thug, right? He's probably from the hood, right? He has a nice car. He probably sells drugs, right? Like those are the things that a lot of people think about first. Black man, nice car, sells drugs or whatever, right? It's kind of funny, coaching and going to different places. And I think one day we had a game. It was an early game. I actually brought my suit to work. So I put on my suit after work and I'm leaving, and people look at you differently when you're walking in a suit compared to when I'm leaving in my gym shorts and a t-shirt getting ready for football practice or something, and I was just recently, right? Like I wear my football practice shorts and a t-shirt every day to work, right? Well, yesterday I was going to go read the books, so I wore khaki shorts and a polo. The different looks that you get from people just from throwing on khaki shorts and a polo was amazing. And I pay attention to it now all the time when I'm leaving or when I'm out somewhere. Like, hey, I want to see how people are looking at me, because you can tell if you're judging or not, right? So, yeah, one day I'm leaving work. I got on my suit. Heck, people think I'm a doctor now, like. So, and at the hospital, a lot of people probably think, well, he's probably he's probably a minister leaving the hospital, right? Like, oh, that good guy. People stop, shake your hand, talk to you, whatever, and then the next day I'm in a baseball cap, shorts, and a t-shirt, and they're taking 2 steps away from you because they don't see my badge, they don't know that I work there, and then they just assume something that's not right. So I mean, that I could do that for just think if I lived a life and I thought everywhere I went every white person was racist, right? Like, live a life where you think that one race or the certain group of people is a certain way, and your life would be horrible, just horrible, because you're missing out on so much, right? Like, you're missing out on so much culture. You're missing out on other things. You might have missed out on a friendship because you see people a certain way and you automatically put people in a box, right? So I could have did that my 8th grade year when I moved out here, right? Like, I could have just been like, you know what? I'm not going out there. The school's full of white people. The whole town's white. They're all racist. I'm going to Manual. Right? Like, I feel more comfortable going to a school that's 95% black than I do going to a school that's 100% white before I go out there. Right? If I did live a life like that's probably what would happen. But you see people for who they are. You see people because they're unique. And look where I am today. So, yeah, people need to start opening up their eyes, right? And open up their hearts also, and let people in and stop putting up that wall. Yeah, you should have a wall because things do happen, but there are certain walls that you shouldn't have, and one of them is that racism wall. And for people to say that it's not there is garbage.
Coach, the one that gets me the most is, I'm blacker than you are. Like, when white kids say that just cracks me up. Like, or they'll say, you're not black, but in a way that makes it sound like they're blacker than you. Like, no, that's not how it works, dude. Sorry. Like, cracks me up.
So, you know how many times I've gotten that, right? Like, dude, I'm blacker than you. No, you're not. Not on any day you're blacker than me. You know why? Because when you drive down the road, guess who you're not worried about? When you go into a store, guess what you're not worried about? When you leave your house, guess what you're not worried about? Right? Like, being black, being a black man, once you leave your house, there are certain things that you worry about daily. And if you don't worry about those, you can't say that you're blacker than somebody else. You can't say that you're equal to that person because you don't worry about the same worries that I worry about. I get in my car, I worry about getting pulled over. I see cars fly by me every day on the interstate. Guess what I don't do? Fly with them, right? Because I always feel like no matter what, if I'm in the back, the front, or the middle, I always feel like I'm getting it, right? You don't worry about when you're in a store getting followed, you know. When you're picking up your wife from work, this has happened a couple of times when you're picking up your wife from work and then the guy is following you around and you're just looking at stuff. And then it happens that the next day, the same guy is following you and it's like, what? You just saw me pick up my wife yesterday. Well, what do you think we're doing? Right? Like, we're going to rob this place. You know where she works. I'm in here every day. You know my face. So I'm not scoping out little kid bikes. You know, I might be scoping them out to buy one for my kid, but I'm not scoping them out to steal them. You know, and then, I mean, you have that stuff all the time, right? But then I go into a store dressed in khaki shorts and a polo, and there's another group of black guys. You know, guess who's getting followed that day? Not me. It could be the two black police officers that are wearing hoodies and sweatpants that are getting followed. Because all they see is there's two black guys with hoodies on, you know, but they don't know that they work for the police department, right? Like, just the judgment that's out there. So, yeah, they don't worry about the same stuff you worry about. I'm sorry. You're not blacker than somebody. You're not blacker than somebody, especially when you're not the same color. You know, it's not how that works.
Coach, you were talking about how, like, you know, looks kind of give people like that, oh, okay, like, you know, he's fine, or oh, maybe we should follow him type thing. And just how people look at you. And the other day, I got a new car, and it's a nicer one. Some old white lady pulls up next to me, and she rolls down her window and says, "How much crack rock did you sell to get that?"
Oh my God.
I just put my windows up and drove off. I was so angry. I was like, you gotta be kidding me. It just, I was like, that's, I don't know. I just, it still makes me mad just thinking about it. Like, it's so dumb. It was so dumb. Like, you can't just assume like, I don't know. She definitely, though, like, was, yeah.
Sorry for laughing, but
No, it's fine. I understand.
Because I get that. I understand it, right? Like, I can identify with that. Yeah, how much crack rock did you sell, or you know, anything else? You know, how many people did you have to pimp out to get that, right?
Right.
So I think about that stuff all the time, right? Like, when people are looking at me and I drive up in our newer car or our cars in general, and they see me get out, and especially like dressed like I am now, I got on my gym shorts and my t-shirt, and they're like, you know, they don't have to say anything. They just go, right? Like, that says a lot to me right there. You're already judging me, and you're assuming that I'm doing something wrong because, you know, black people can't have a job like everybody else, right? but we're seeing that more and more now, right? And people say there's no racism, right? But right there, right, that wasn't prejudice. That was nothing but racism, because people are much more comfortable now with speaking out and saying something, right? Like I'm in the car with my wife and kid, and we're at a stop sign, and this guy turns left, and he is rubbernecking so bad, looking into our car, right? And I'm like, dude, if you don't turn around, you're gonna hit something, because he's staring me down, and I'm like, okay, like, what's his problem, right? Then I told Brittany, I said, well, maybe it was my hat. I got a different color American flag on. So maybe he was trying to check out the hat. I don't know. Today, coming home from work, this guy slows down, like before we're even close to Route 8, slows down big time, turns on the signal. I mean, we're going, I don't know, 30 miles per hour going down the hill into the valley before you hit the stop sign. So I slowed down behind him because I don't know what he's doing. I don't know if he's not healthy. People start slowing down like that and that much. So he stops for a lengthy time at the stop sign, and he's like looking in his rearview mirror, like just looking in his rearview mirror. He turns left. People who know where I live at, I keep straight. And he's like, I can still see him looking in his rearview mirror, like, dude, just drive, man. Just drive, right? Don't worry about me, okay? I'm going home. Obviously, you don't know who I am, but there's something inside of him that's thinking, what's that guy doing out here? Who's that, right? Like, I've never seen this man before, so I don't know where he's from. But, hey, driving out in the country, yeah, I'm going to get some of those looks now, right? Like, people that don't know me, Anthony, I'm going to get that, what? I wonder how much he sold to get that, And I could be a car salesman. And I say, yeah, man, I sold like 10 grand, right? And they think, oh, well, he sold 10 grand in drugs. No, man, I made 10 grand in selling cars, right? So, yeah, because I like to mess with people like that.
Hey, Brandon,
yeah.
The first time I saw it as a parent, I had Ainsley, and Ainsley was like probably 10, 11, and Anthony was probably 13 or 14.
13.
Yeah, 13. And I was like, all right, he goes, we're at Dick's Sporting Goods in Peoria. He goes, can I go by myself? And I was like, no, I don't know. I don't really feel comfortable you doing that. I said, that's fine. And all of a sudden I take Ainsley to get her stuff. And all of a sudden I'm looking for Anthony. And all I had to do was find where all the employees were. There were 4 employees following him because he was, and I literally walked up to one of them, like, what are you guys looking at? And they were completely shocked that I called them out on it. I started realizing that more and more, like, we go to the stores now with the boys, like Anthony will go one way, and then Aiden's like, I want to go another way now. And I'm like, it's amazing how quickly the store clerks will, like, Ainsley will be going into the section where she'll be looking at shoes, she'll be looking at Jordans. And all of a sudden the boys will come up, and all of a sudden there's 3 or 4 clerks watching their every move, and they have to go to a different section. And it's just, yeah, it's amazing how you don't see that. And we were on vacation another time with friends. We were at the beach. I think we were in Cocoa Beach, Florida. And also my buddy goes, you notice people are staring at us? I said, what do you mean? He goes, you notice that, like, every single time someone walks by, they like try to figure out what's going on with the dynamics of the family. I was like, to me, I became so oblivious to it because, after a while you don't pay attention to that. But yeah, it's amazing how the inner racism of people, they don't think they have it until they say a comment like you and I have laughed about before. When people ask, they look at our family like, who's adopted? I always say Ainsley, and it throws them off. They have no clue what it is. You're right. You're right. I do kill it with kindness, because sometimes the anger you have because of the pure ignorance of a comment coming out of their mouth, you're just like, you want to punch them in the face, but then what are you teaching your kids that, hey, so every single time someone says something ignorant,
right,
you know, you have to do it. Like today at basketball, we had a girl make a comment like, I'm as dark as, what'd she say? Harriet Tubman. And I froze. And even and luckily one of the senior captains turned around and said, "You said what?" And she can tell by my eyes I was going to probably tear this freshman a new one. And then luckily the senior took care of it. But you could tell by the innocent look on her face, the freshman, you know, she was just saying it, not knowing what it meant when she said that.
Right. Right.
I think that's, you know, we go back to a couple of weeks ago where we talked about in schools, we have too many teachers that allow kids to make comments and they don't correct them because I don't think they know how to.
Right.
It's an embarrassing thing for the teacher to hear a kid say that, but then how do you correct that as a teacher if you're not used to seeing that or hearing that? You know, I mean, or sometimes your family says it and you're just kind of, you laugh along with it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And then you get just this whole snowball rolling that, you know, well, this kid or this person was never corrected, and then they just keep on repeating it and nobody corrects them, and then next thing you know, they do meet somebody that will end up punching them in the face later on, and then that usually corrects it. But yeah, we're it's gonna tell a story about, kind of got a blank here now, but yeah, we deal with that. Oh, Brittany and I will be out shopping, or we'll all be getting dinner. You know, there's been a couple times we went to McDonald's, and Brittany, I, and Brashen are standing right next to each other. Brittany and Brashen will order their food, and then they'll start checking them out, right? And I'm standing right by them. I'm like, wait, I'm hungry too, you know. And they're like, oh, sorry, we didn't know you two were together. Dude, I'm like right in her hip, right? Like I'm like right by her. You think she's just gonna let some stranger just be right on her hip like that? And I'm like, look at our kid, man. Like you can't tell that, you know, a couple walks in and their son walks in with them, and ta-da, that's what happens. So we were in Louisiana, and we're shopping, we're buying shoes. And this lady, I'm standing in front and I'm waiting for Brashen and Brittany to get done. And they come up and the guy starts helping her because she had the money. So the lady walks by and says, he was first. He was up here first. I'm like, well, we're together. And it's the same thing. It's like, look at the three of us, and if you can't put three in, you know, the three of us together, then obviously you're looking at something that you shouldn't be, and that is the racist part of people, right? Assuming that, well, they can't be together, right? Like, well, that guy was here first, and we're sitting here talking to each other like we do all the time, and it's like, no, man, it's fine. But the guy that was helping us was like, hey, I'm sorry. You know, he apologized for him. Like, dude, it's not your fault. You're not the one that's ignorant, right? Like, you're not the one that's seeing the race and just assuming that, hey, that dude was here first, and I don't know why you're helping that white girl before him because he was there staying in the line. I'm like, well, we're all paying with the same card, so it kind of doesn't matter. But, you know, I get that stuff. The following in the stores, you know, do I let Brashen go on his own yet? Heck no. Because I would be that parent that saw people following him, and they will have a piece of my mind. You know, why are you following my son? He's not doing anything wrong. If he's going to grab something, he's going to bring it to me and ask me if I'll buy it for him. Usually it's a no because he's spoiled enough. So that's what happens. But that's the thing that we have to worry about, right? Like, so other people can send their kids into a store and not have to worry about them being followed. And usually they're the ones that are stealing while the black guy is being followed by everybody, right? like that's the other part of that. You don't follow the guy that's stealing. You're following the guy that's actually here to buy something or look, while somebody else is over there taking all these clothes to the fitting room and then putting them on and then walking out.
Even like with me, I've noticed it even on dates and stuff too. Like if I'm even a little bit ahead of someone, I'll go and then they'll start handing me back my change. I'm like, I'm paying for her too. Like this isn't, this is for both of us. But
yeah, it's kind of weird how, like, there's been interracial couples for a long time, right? Like, it's kind of weird that now all of a sudden people are seeing that as wrong, or as in, no, that can't happen, right? Like, Anthony, you're here by yourself to watch this movie, right? There's not a lot of young kids that go to a movie by themselves. There are some, but not a lot. So then you're assuming that this girl that he's with is also here by herself to watch a movie, right? Like, so now you have two people in a row that's here to watch a movie by themselves. That doesn't happen. So, yeah, people just assume that, hey, well, you guys can't be together. You know, you're black, she's white, or whatever, vice versa. And that's not how that works anymore. We don't do that stuff anymore, right? Like it was a fad or something.
Brandon, I think for me, what is so interesting about this is, like, I can sit here and listen to you and listen to Anthony, and I can't dispute that this stuff is totally real. Like, you could sit there and listen to it on the news, and all the red side and blue side and right and left and all that, and it's a narrative and everything. Except I sit here and listen to this, I'm like, you're not making this up, and you're not imagining it.
Right.
I mean, it's like you've experienced it enough, it's absolutely real. And for me to sit here and listen to you, and at any part of me think, nah, this really doesn't happen, is just to you or Anthony or to Brashen someday, or it would be a new level of ignorance to say that you're making it up or it's some figment of your imagination. That's what's so hard to believe, is that what I do not ever experience is a reality that you experience all the time. And some people refuse to believe that is actually happening.
Right. And yeah. And I mean, it's all fake, right? Like, none of this stuff is, especially now, right? 2020, we got the whole fake news stuff out there. We got all that. All of this is fake. It's all false. None of this happens. The whole numbers about, well, more white people are killed by cops than black people are, right? Well, if you look at those numbers, how many armed white people are killed by cops, right? And then how many unarmed black people are killed by cops? Okay. There are more unarmed black people killed by cops than there are white unarmed. And there are more black people who are unarmed who are killed more than white people who are armed, right? Like, that stuff isn't fake, right? But people want to bring up their own numbers, make up their own numbers, see their own facts, whatever makes them feel good at night is what they want to see and what they want to hear, right? So, yeah, for people to say racism isn't real, that's not a thing. Slavery happened 400 years ago. Nothing's happening anymore. The biggest one is there's not slavery, right? If you look at the 13th Amendment and how it built the jail systems, the prison systems, and what it says in that amendment about slavery and free labor with the prison system, and then how the police forces were built to fill the prisons, right, to get free labor. Okay, like if people actually looked into that history, then they would see, man, you know, there is still slavery in a different context, right? There's, hey, you do something wrong, we're going to put you in prison for X amount of years, and then we get free labor from you, you know. But yeah, all of that, you know, you look at Seneca Village, you look at Greenwood, you look at Chicago, you look at city down in Florida, you look at cities in Iowa, you look at other cities in New York, you look cities in Michigan, cities all over America, California, Texas, all these cities that have been destroyed over the years. And then you sit there and say, there's no racism, right? Like that doesn't happen now. Yeah, it does, you know. And yeah, I mean, if Anthony and I just sat here and talked, like if I didn't present anything and Anthony and I just sat here and talked, I think you guys would be surprised at half the stuff that we talked about. And he's young, right? Like I'm 35. Did you graduate or are you about to?
I'm going to be a senior.
You're going to be a senior. Okay. If I sat here and invited my brother on and we talked about stuff, you know, I mean, I could sit here and I could just invite one of my friends on and we could talk for hours about all of this stuff because this is what we talk about at the barbershop, right? Like all of this stuff goes on, but yet people don't want to see it because it's first off, it's bad and they don't want to believe it. They don't want to believe that the country was that bad ever. They want to believe that everything was okay. Everything is rainbows and unicorns and America's always been great, right? But what they don't want to talk about, the Trail of Tears with the Native Americans, right? You know, they don't want to talk about how blacks were injected with diseases and then act like they were given medicine for it and then just watch them die, right? Like they don't want to talk about that stuff. You know, they just want to talk about, well, we built the Great Railroad, you know, we freed the slaves, our presidents did this, George Washington did that, we beat the king, you know, we had the Boston Tea Party and we're upset about taxes, and that was great. But yet in 2020, if you protest, that's wrong. You shouldn't protest. But I'm pretty sure the Boston Tea Party was a big protest. They threw a bunch of tea in the water for protest of taxes. Correct? Pretty sure that's right. So yeah, I mean, we don't make this stuff. We can't just make this stuff up off the cuff and feed off of each other. Now, these are real life stories, and people don't want to hear it. And sometimes you start talking to somebody about them, and they'll just blow you off. Oh, that's fake. That's fake. No, it ain't, man. This is my life. All right, we're talking about my life, and you want to say that that's fake? Then, all right, whatever. I'm done. Right, but. Yeah, I have had some people watch these videos that I didn't know who were watching them, and then they contact me like, man, dude, I didn't know that. You know, I need to start doing some homework and doing some research on some stuff. And yeah, just Google anything you want and it'll be there, right? Just Google Black communities destroyed and it'll bring up different articles. You know, it just bring up all this other stuff. Yeah, I've had conversation with people that say, you know, racism isn't real, it's not there, it doesn't happen, it's all that stuff. And I don't know where you live at. Okay, you might live in a small town and you never leave your small town, so it doesn't happen in your small town, but it happens in America, right? It happens all over America. And it's not just, it happens everywhere, you know? So when you put yourself in a box, then maybe it doesn't. Any other questions, comments? I know we had, I'm gonna touch on something just a little bit. What we talked about last week, we're talking about voting, and we're talking about voter suppression, and how like Texas has to, you have to go vote. You can't do the mail-in ballot thing and all that stuff. Alabama now, if you I don't know if they pass it or they're trying to. If you ask for a mail-in ballot, you have to have it notarized. And if you don't have it notarized, then it doesn't count. Right? Now, how many people know a notary or where to get something notarized, and how much does that cost? So it plays into the voter tax system into, well, I know where a notary is. I know how to get it. Can I afford it? Right? We go back to, even if it's $20, can people afford it? You know? So I got that text from my dad the other day, because we were talking about the voter stuff, and yeah, it was, there are so many tactics, you know, to keep people from voting. So yeah, so I'll just read this text. Yep, Alabama notary for a mail-in ballot, and if you can't get a notary or you can't afford it, then you either have to go to the voting booths, and if they, I don't know what they're doing with the voting booths. I don't think they're getting rid of them. I haven't seen any of that yet, but yeah, you have to go, right? And with this pandemic going on, do a lot of people want to go out right now, especially in the southern states? You're seeing spikes. So yeah, that's another way to keep the voter voting down in a state. Any more questions? Any comments? So I would say this before I finish. I would like to thank you, everybody that's joined. I would like to thank you, everybody that has watched the next day or throughout the week. I know a lot of people can't make it on a Tuesday night at 7. I have thought about possibly moving it 1 week just to see how many people would come. Like if I did it on a Thursday, or if I did it something like that, just to see. But I kind of like doing it on Tuesday. It's early in the week. I have the weekend to prepare, and then it's, you know, we talk on Tuesday, and then that gives me enough time to get ready for next Tuesday. So thank you for joining. Keep sharing the page. You can also follow me on Twitter, on the Brandon's Black History page on that. And I also started an Instagram page that you can follow too. Same name, same picture, same profile picture. So, and then all of the contacts that I've been getting from this, has been kind of cool, right? Like I've been getting different contacts. I'm talking to people in Chicago now, talking to other people in Peoria, setting up some other stuff. So besides these meetings, you will probably see more stuff coming out from me in ways of panels in Peoria and talking to other people. And then I will continue to visit the daycare, and also I do have some invites for some schools to come speak to. So yeah, this has been awesome for me to talk, to teach, and I want to keep it going as long as I can. You know, get that history out and get people to understand, and share the videos when I post them. Share them with your friends, tag your friends in them, invite them to the Facebook group. That is the one that I use the most. So invite all your friends to the Facebook group, and yeah, just let's keep this thing rolling and keep teaching, keep spreading love. You know, I love all you guys, and there's other ways of getting your point across, but I felt like this is the way for me to get my point across, even though in the beginning I was so angry, right? So angry and so much built up stuff, and you start thinking about all this stuff that's happened, and hey, how about we just talk about the history instead of, you know, being on the wrong side of history. You know, let's be on the right side of history, and do something like this. So you might see a YouTube. A guy contacted me today. You might see a YouTube meeting panel thing start coming out from Peoria. So I'll keep you guys posted on what's going on with that stuff. And yeah, there'll be some good things coming from the city of Peoria here pretty soon with this. So thank you guys for joining.
Hey, Brandon, do you feel nervous about more and more people joining? Like, I know I feel nervous even turning on my camera and talking to 12 people.
Yeah.
So do you feel like nervous that as more and more people listen, your audience grows, and that, like, you know, people might challenge you more? And I don't know about you, but I never know the right things to say, like, on the spot. Is that something that you feel concerned or nervous about?
So after this is the 5th week, so I'm kind of past that the nerves now. I'm kind of set in on what I'm doing. I'm grounded in what I'm doing, and I'm looking forward to people to challenge me now, right? Like, I do the homework on what I'm talking about, and then I have my own personal experiences to talk about, you know, and if people do want to challenge me, then they need to be ready for me to come back at them, and they better be prepared with facts or something to back up with what they're saying. And the more I do this, the more people I talk to, I get better at this. Like my first week, I was a nervous wreck, right? My first week, I was walking around the house. I didn't even talk to my wife or my son. Like, I was like, for 2 hours before, I was just like, I was chugging water. You know, it was scary. I didn't know, right? Like, you're doing something new. I didn't know. And now just talking to other people, and people are like, I know I'm doing the right thing, because people that I don't know and I never knew of are contacting me and telling me that I'm doing a good job. And they're, you know, I'm getting those, that stuff, right? Like, I'm getting the, hey, good job, keep it up, you know, keep doing what you're doing. You know, I'm getting stopped at work by people that I didn't even know who read the article or whatever, and they're asking me questions. You know, it's yeah, I'm getting more confident every week. Right.
Well, I know last week there was a lot of kind of back and forth more than there's been on some of the other ones.
Yeah,
and I'm really impressed with how you handled it and how you seemed very confident. And also were very good at letting people just say their thing and get it out. And then, I mean, those are kind of people that should be attending these meetings, and hopefully are open-minded and learning, just like the rest of us are who maybe aren't saying as much.
Like, if you have, I'll say this right. If you have friends like that, if you've seen people post on Facebook or Twitter of anything opposite of what's being said here, invite them to the page and invite them to the class. Because now I'm at the point where, no, I want those people to attend this class, right? I want to give them the education on what's going on and why people are upset. And maybe, just maybe, if I can change one mind, right? Just one. I don't need to change them all. If I can change one, then maybe that person can go change one. And then it becomes a effect, as in, you know, hey, man, maybe we shouldn't be talking like this, right? Like I sat in this class and this guy had all this info and, you know, it was real. It wasn't from a news channel. It wasn't from, you know, I'm not getting paid for this, right? Like I'm taking time out of my night to do this. And it's not about money. It's not about any of that. So you're getting a unbiased, you know, lesson. And I want those people in this class, and I want those people to watch the video, and I want those people to make comments on the video, so then I can go back and say, nope, you're wrong. Yep, you're wrong, and you're wrong. And then and usually I would do that in a private message. You know, I don't want to get involved in, you know, I feel like you kind of embarrass people sometimes when you get into those public comments sections.
And then they dig their heels in more.
Right. So if you can talk to them in a private message, then sometimes you can get them to open up a little more, because then their friends don't see that message, right? So, but yeah, keep inviting everybody. I'm like focused, right? Like this is, as the coaches, like this is probably like, but besides sports, this is what I talk about now. Right? like I don't talk about anything else at work. This is what I talk about, and it's been great. So yeah, Anthony, you had something?
Are you going to talk at Elmwood?
Mrs. Roberts has asked me to, hopefully that I'll be able to make that happen. Mr. Morrison has asked me to come talk to the driver's ed class about things that you learned when you started driving, right? And the differences of us learning how to drive and what we have to go through and what our parents do teach us. But yeah, I'm hoping to talk at Elmwood. I have invites I have invites from teachers at other places, but then of course that has to be all approved with this going back to school stuff, and will visitors be able to come and all that stuff. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to being invited to the school and talking. I would love to do a auditorium, whole high school type speech deal at the school, you know, not just the history class or whatever, but go talk to everybody. Which I think is kind of where it's kind of weird how I don't see myself as a speaker in front of a lot of people, but being in these Google meetings is making it easier for me to talk to people. You know, it's comfortable. So I've been invited to some other stuff, open panel, open all that stuff. So it's kind of looking towards that way that I'll start speaking at different places. So anything else? If not, it's been a great night, another great night with you guys. And so next week, Red Summer 1919. But I will go from 1917 to 1923. And we'll talk about all of the big race riot that happened with that. And I'm just gonna let you know, if you do have your kids watching this, or if you are sharing this with people, I think next week might be the most brutal one that I put together, with pictures and videos and stuff. So really invite your friends for next week, because it's gonna be one that's tough. It's gonna be tough to talk about, and it's gonna strike some chords. So that was 1990, or I think between those years it was 97 lynchings, and no one has been held accountable for any of that stuff that happened then. So yeah, it's gonna be a good one. So please invite your friends, share the page, invite them to the page, and then I'll put more info on there this week. So all right, almost 2 hours. So you guys have a great night, and I will see you next week.